Welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Haas.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Niche Pursuits Podcast. My name's Spencer, and I also have Perrin with me along as co-host. Perrin, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How's it going, everybody?
Awesome. Yeah, good to have you back. I'm excited to talk a little bit more about a product called Vilo. And we're going to get into exactly what that is, but today is episode 33. We are continuing along quite strong here with our weekly podcast, so everything is going well. But we recently wrote a blog post called How We Launched Vilo and Where We Go From Here. And correct me if I'm wrong, Perrin, but I don't think we've actually discussed what Vilo is in depth at all on the podcast. Is that right?
We have not.
Yeah, so Vilo is a project that we've been working on for just over 6 months now, and Perrin's been working on for longer than that.
Yeah.
But essentially, for the most part on this podcast, I'm going to let Perrin take it away, but because it's his baby, it's his project. So Vilo is an idea that Perrin had. It's a web-based voice chat software primarily for gamers. Mm-hmm. And Perrin had the idea, and he generated some buzz, and I'm going to let him maybe go into that whole story of how he got 6,000 people to sign up on his email list expressing interest for when this product was launched. But once Perrin had shown me that email list and shared with me the idea, I saw that there was a lot of potential, and I joined up with the Vilo team and invested in the project and have been working on getting it developed. We've been working with a programmer to get it all designed and developed and out the door. And just a week and a half or so ago, we finally had the final product, or at least the initial product that we were ready to show to the public and launch out into the world, and we did that. And so today the topic of the podcast is going to cover not only what Vilo is and the background of the idea, but how we've launched that initially and what our marketing plans are going forward. And then, of course, we're going to have more of a dialogue as we go for strategy and things that perhaps maybe we need to change a little bit down the road in the future if we need to do that. Mm-hmm. So, Perrin, I'm going to, like I said, for the most part, I'm going to let you take over for the main discussion. I'm going to jump in with points and discussion. Yeah. But why don't you go ahead and jump in? Tell us a little bit about the history of Vilo, how you came up with the idea, and then we'll go over how we launched it.
Sure, yeah. So Vilo was born out of an intense desire to get out of my day job. So this was way back when I was consulting at a big consulting firm, doing the quote 9-to-5 job, which was usually more like a 8-to-7 job, and I desperately wanted to get out. And one of the ways that I did that, or when I decided to really do that, I was just pounding business books on my lunch breaks and researching entrepreneurship and teaching myself SEO and basically doing everything possible to try to get myself into a position where I could make my own living. And so I was reading these business books, and I read several great business books, Millionaire Fastlane and Lean Startup and a bunch of other ones that people have probably heard of. And, I started brainstorming ideas that I thought could potentially be valuable. And one of the ideas I had, and this was not the first, by the way, I tried to do some really ridiculous stuff. I think I told you a long time ago, I tried to start like a dating coach business and things like that.
That's right.
Absolutely didn't work. Well, I made $18, but beyond that,
nice.
it didn't work. Yeah. And so, like any good business idea, I started with the problems, like what things in my life frustrated me. And one of the things that I have always been frustrated with is the voice chat software for gamers. Because right now, there are basically 3 different options. Or like 5, really. So like Ventrilo, Mumble, TeamSpeak, Xfire, and maybe one more, and like Skype.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those are supremely frustrating for any gamer for a couple of reasons. The first and most important one is that you have to download something. So, it's clunky, it runs in your background. In order to use it at all, you have to download a program. Um, the second one is that for most of them, you have to buy or rent server space, and this is especially true with like Ventrilo and Mumble. So you can't just download it and use it. You have to download it and then sign up for your own server, and then you can use it. Third, you have to exchange account information, and so this is especially true with like Skype, where like if you're going to chat with your friends, you have an account name, they have an account name, and you have to share these things before you can even connect, right? So
Mm-hmm.
all those things are really frustrating, and in my view, if you solve those problems and made something that was much easier and much faster, that you didn't have to download, you could fill a gap in the market. And that's kind of where the idea was born. So,
Awesome.
um, you know, like any new entrepreneur, my first idea was to try to build it, which I think is a pretty common mistake. And so, my best friend and I, who was the only person on the team at the time, we started trying to contact developers and see if we can get this thing built. But we only had about $700 to really invest. And anybody who has tinkered with development of any sort or tried to outsource it knows that in the development world, you really get what you pay for. So we
Right.
had, um, you know, just a gamut of really bad developers. Our money was tied up in escrow for a long time. We almost had to take legal action against somebody, and it was that whole process was like 4 months long.
So were you actually able to find somebody that said they were willing to build it for $700?
Couple people, yeah. One company overseas, and the first thing that they put together was so far off from what we wanted, we canceled immediately. And the other one was actually a friend of mine who does UI for Garmin, and he just, stopped emailing and lost interest. So it's really
Ouch.
tough, and it's not even their fault, really. I mean,
Hmm.
it's very hard to get motivated for $700, and I think when we first started, we didn't know how big the scope of the project was because it
Right.
is a simple idea, but what we would learn later is that um, you know even though it's simple, it was a fairly complicated build.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, what you said one of the things that people make mistakes when they first start out is trying to develop themselves. Do you mean them trying to program it themselves or build it themselves, or just the many hurdles and stumbling blocks that come with hiring somebody?
What I mean mostly is that they tried to build it before they sell it,
Okay.
or that they tried to build it before they try to market it. And this is advice I actually got from a couple friends of mine who work at Sandbox in Chicago. So my friend Kasia works at Sandbox in Chicago, which is a really unique company. They are kind of an incubator, but not quite. But what they do um, is they hire entrepreneurs as employees and then give them a budget to start new companies. So if you
Hmm.
go in there, it's just 50 or 30 people who are all sitting around with money to play with, and they're just starting companies, and like that's what they do all day. So,
Yeah, I know we've talked about Sandbox quite a bit. You told me about it, and I think it's an awesome idea. I would love to either have some sort of group of my own of entrepreneurs doing that, or some similar, setup where people are just generating ideas and coming up with new things that are different business ventures. I think it's such a cool company,
I think yeah, I
doing
think
some
it's
cool
really true.
things.
And what better way to like network than to just have all your employees under one roof?
Yeah, for
But
sure.
a lot of cool companies have come out of Sandbox for sure. But when I went down to talk to those guys, which was great for them to make some time for me because they weren't getting anything out of it. The overwhelming advice was stop trying to build your product and create a demand first. Because the reality is, if you create a product and there's no demand for it, then you've wasted all your time and money for essentially nothing. So at that point, we stopped investing any money, and I started trying to test the demand for the market. And I did a couple things. I was talking to some friends, and I was talking to some gamers I know, and I was talking to my old professional gaming team to kind of test, on an individual level, what people would actually think of this thing and if they would use it. But the big traction came, or the big yes came, with a Reddit post that I posted on the League of Legends subreddit. So that was basically just, a long post detailing where the idea came from, the struggles we've had already. At that point, we'd made a marketing video and a landing page, which is not a product. It was just basically a premium WordPress theme. And said, if you like this idea and want to see it happen, just give us your email. Every email we get is a vote, right? And that day, we got like 6,000 emails, which is crazy. Like, that's an insane amount of emails,
It is, yes.
And it was very fun to watch it go up. And another side benefit was that we learned about some competitors that were already out there, people who were doing the same thing. And we actually got to talk to one of the guys who programmed one of those. And so it gave us a lot of good insights.
Yeah, now I'm going to jump in here. Now, 6,000 people on an email list is huge. I mean, I can tell you that there are people that have blogs for a year or 2 years or more and never get 6,000 people on their email list. Yeah. And they're trying, they're doing everything that they know how to do with, pop-ups or sidebar forms or anything. So you say, you got 6,000 people in one day. Is there anything that people can take away to maybe increase their own email lists? What was the secret that you think you did on Reddit? Was it just posting on Reddit? Should everybody go start posting on Reddit? Or were there some elements within that post? Are there any takeaways, lessons people can learn in their own niche to build up their email list using a similar strategy?
Sure. So I think the first thing is to recognize where the eyeballs really are. I would have never gotten 6,000 emails if I posted on Facebook. And I would have never gotten 6,000 emails if I posted on Twitter. When I posted on Reddit, though, it was a community that I had been involved in, and I let them know that. And I knew their specific problem, So it was a specific game that's very popular that I played. And so when I started talking to them, or when I posted, I could say, I know you guys have this problem. This is how I want to solve it, which is the first and most basic step to creating any kind of buzz, right? The second thing was that I think people really respond to two things that are, for the most part, underrated. And this kind of comes from my communication background. But one is telling a story, and the second is long-form content. So I think the impulse when you say, let's generate some social media buzz is to just post your thing and then move on and do that a whole bunch. Our strategy was to take a day to craft this post and make sure that it was tailored for this audience. And that post was basically a story of our whole process. It was like 900 words or something, which is very long for Reddit.
Right.
And so, when you post something like that, what it communicates to your audience is that, I'm with you, we're on the same team, and I care a lot about what I'm doing. And it's especially effective if you can kind of show the work you've done so far. So we were like, here's our marketing video, here's our landing page, this is the mock-up we've shown to our developers, and that kind of thing. And the third thing, I guess this is three things, is that we asked for help. We weren't trying to trick anybody. We weren't, having pop-ups, or it wasn't like a maneuver. We said, please help us. If you like this idea, you can help, and you are important. All you have to do is sign up, because every email counts as a vote.
Yep.
And so the response was, we think this is a cool idea, and we would love to help.
Yeah, awesome. A lot of takeaways that, yeah, great points that I think people can apply in whatever niche they're in. Maybe not to the T or exactly, but hopefully that'll get the juices flowing for a few people out there.
Yeah.
So you posted on Reddit, obviously got tons of emails, but I sort of cut you off there. You said you had learned a few things about other competitors, and then what else were some takeaways from that Reddit post?
Well, really, when I look back on it, when I look back on that Reddit post, I feel like it was much less about spreading the word and more like crowdfunding support. So we didn't ask for dollars, but we essentially had the same model as like a Kickstarter campaign would, which
Right.
is like a very long form. This is the problem we're going to solve. Here's how you can help, and ask. But yeah, so after we did that, we knew there was demand. We still had no money, and it was, honestly on the back burner. We still had no idea how to get a developer or anything, and we kind of at that point knew that we were going to have to pay more money. So it was at a standstill until we started the niche site project and started talking to you. And honestly, we didn't know how crazy it is to get 6,000 emails. None of us had ever tried to build an email list before, so the next big step was finding somebody named Spencer Hawes to give us a little capital to play with and actually get it built.
What a stud.
Yeah, what a stud. Dropping Hawes bombs.
The Hawes bombs once again.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I was impressed when you had told me about the project, and of course there is this whole history that we worked together on the niche site project, and it did very well. And I knew you had a great work ethic, that you're smart, and you were very together with everything. And then you told me about this project and how you had generated so much interest just basically in one day, 1 week, and you had a landing page and you knew exactly what you wanted. So I was impressed, and it just so happened to coincide with a time in my business where I was starting to look for other projects that I could invest in.
Right.
My business has done fairly well with Longtail Pro and other aspects of my business, so I've been very blessed in that regard. And I was looking for other projects, and I knew that you were a person, like I said, all those qualities. Even though I'm not a gamer myself, I can see the huge potential in the gaming industry.
Yeah.
And it did look like there was a market here, and you had kind of proven that. And so that's why I decided to join on, put some money down to help you guys get the project going.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was kind of surreal for us, It was, and to say we are grateful is a crazy understatement, but it was a really fun call to make. Like, hey, I got an investor, and Samir's like, you got what? We have how much? And but it was basically like, let's pay a real developer and get it built and see what happens.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's something that you want to build the product right.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go for it, you want a quality product. Once you've got some interest, like you already did.
Yeah.
And that is a good point to make, that you probably don't want to invest your life savings into something that you haven't proven at least a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't know the market there. So you'd done that. I was willing to invest, and we got the project off the ground. So.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
So the next step was finding a developer, and we don't want to go into the boring details, but it was somebody that you had worked with before. His name is Nick Orn, and he is a fantastic developer, very easy to work with, and we kind of had several calls, talked about what we wanted, showed him the mock-ups, explained to him what it was supposed to do, and he got it right away because he's a gamer, which was I think a major advantage to us. And Nick started working on the technical side, and it should be said that we hired him. What was it, in early January, middle of January, something like that?
Yeah, that
Maybe
sounds about
December.
right. Yeah,
And
right around.
we'd planned to get it developed in a month or 2 months, and it took about 4 times that.
Yeah.
Just because of all the technical details that we kind of didn't foresee. So during that time, we were basically doing nothing. We didn't know what to do. We didn't have anything to tell our email list, which would end up being what I thought would be a disadvantage, and I'm not sure what to think of it still. But our email list was getting cold, the product was getting developed, and we were kind of twiddling our thumbs because we thought it was going to take so much shorter, you know. And I don't think that was anybody's fault. It was just much bigger than we thought it was going to be.
Right. Yeah, with any project, there's some hiccups along the way, and this one did certainly drag out a little bit longer than we had hoped. But at the end of the day, I think we ended up with a great product.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it's a weird culmination of a lot of different skills. So obviously, the team that I put together at first, which is myself, a guy named Ahan, and a guy named Samir, are marketing people. You know, we that's kind of what we do, and you know, we have no really development skills or anything, so we needed a developer and a designer. So the final product is, you know, Nick's development capabilities, Susie's design capabilities, and our combined marketing faculties that sort of coalesced in the form of Vilo.
Yep. Absolutely. So here we are now. We're sitting, you know, let's just call it 6 months, roughly.
Yeah.
And even a little longer since you did the Reddit post.
Yeah.
But it's been 6+ months since you've ever emailed the people that had joined the email list, and we now have a final product and we're ready to launch.
Yeah.
So why don't you walk us through how we launched it, what our strategy was, and then of course we'll get into what our future plans are here as well.
Sure. Yeah. You know, it was a crazy week. Because when you are getting ready to launch and you're ready to push this thing out of the nest, you want it to be good. You don't want bugs. You understand that whatever product you're going to release, there is going to be some bugs, but you want it to be as good as possible, and using the time you have before you launch it. And so that week was nuts. Myself, Samir, and Ahan, and Nick were testing the product relentlessly. I mean, we were on there every day testing every little process we could imagine, which was surprising to me because the product seemed so simple that I honestly didn't think there was going to be that much to test. But it's, you know, testing every button, every page, every combination of pages that you might flow through, the payments, getting the actual app transferred over to the domain on which we had built the landing page, and just tons of different things. So leading up to the launch, there was a lot of technical details that we had to cover, and I think Nick was about ready to go crazy because he was just doing so much work. Plus, he had other projects, you know.
Right.
So just on the technical side, we had a lot of stuff to do. Plus, our landing page crashed, and we still don't know why that happened, but I had to rebuild that from scratch. So we had the technical stuff, but also, like the day before we launched, we realized that we had not designed a sales page. So we had to call up Susie, our designer, and say, you know, we need to design this in like 10 hours. And luckily she was like, cool, and she did it, and she sent it off no problem. But, you know, the point is that it was just like this crazy free-for-all of all of us trying to get this thing like presentable before we sort of pushed it out the door.
Yeah.
And like all the while, in the back of my head, I know that I have this massive, totally cold mailing list that I somehow have to reach, which was, you know, like 20 minutes of work when I actually did it, but a major strategic problem before I actually wrote the email, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I mean, leading up to launch, there's always tons of issues. And it's one of those things that there is a lot of stress involved. But now that I've gone through the cycle a few times with different products, I it's maybe a little less stressful for me because
Yeah.
I know once you launch something, you still have eternity to fix the problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an ongoing process, I guess is what I mean. So you launch it on day one, and maybe day three you find out about a bug, and you fix it on day seven. It's incremental improvements are ongoing, but there is sort of that moment in time where you finally release it to the world for the very first time, and it is nerve-wracking
Yeah.
because this is something we've been working on for 6 months, and finally we're going to let other people outside of our inner circle test it and try it. So there's so much going on, and of course you had been thinking and dreaming about this idea for much longer than that. Um, and so why don't you go into some more details about either the email or how did the launch go?
Sure.
How did everything culminate?
Sure. Well, first, we so far have only launched to our list, really. I mean, we've been doing some marketing activities this week, or we've been just sort of gearing up. But that first
Right.
week, we only launched to our list, and that was
Yep.
mostly because we wanted to find bugs before we got tons of traffic, if we ever do get tons of traffic. And we also just wanted to thank our list by giving them early access. So we only really launched to our list, but that day, that email, I mean, we had to come up with something to email to a cold list. And by the way, we had changed our name. So not
Right.
only did we have a completely cold list that we hadn't emailed in months, we had changed our brand. So they were going to get an email from somebody that they'd never heard of, which is a problem. Um, but we knew we had two goals with that first email. One was to get them to open it, and the second one was to remind them that they had supported us several months ago. So what we ended up doing was crafting an email with the subject line, "Remember us?" ?
Mm-hmm.
And then the very first thing that we said in the email was, it's been a while since you told us how excited you were for our voice chat software, and we linked them to the post, hoping that they would remember. And that email did really well. It had an absurdly high open rate. I think the open rate was 42%, and of a 6,000, I think 500 person email list, that amounted to 2,700 visitors, which was very, very encouraging.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think 600 of those people clicked through to the website, which was really great. So after that, we sort of kept priming our list with follow-up emails, not overwhelming them, but telling them like, this is when we're going to launch, here's a countdown, and that kind of thing. And when we actually launched, we sent out an email, and by that time we had, I think, 500 people unsubscribed, so we had an email list of almost exactly 6,000 flat. And when we sent the actual launch email, we got an open rate of 27, almost 28%, which is still very good. And that amounted to 1,700 people, and about 440 people clicked a link through to the website.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very exciting. And the most exciting thing about the launch was that 400 and something people clicked through to the website, but more than that ended up actually using the product, which means that people were inviting their friends to use it with them, which is, a very good indication that it was functioning as intended, which
Right.
is exciting.
Yep. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we could see on day one people coming. I think it was here in the notes 725 visitors on launch day, that actually ended up coming to Vilo.org, and lots of people using it,
Yeah,
actually
about
creating rooms and using the software.
yeah. So on launch day, I think we had 330 people actually use the software, and something like 100 people registered for a free account, which is great because those are people who are taking the next step with the product. Um,
Mhm.
and at this point, I mean, we want traffic, but free users, I think, are our best indication of how well it's working. So it was a pretty good launch. I really honestly expected it to be better. Um, I wanted 1,000 people to go to the website, and I wanted about half of those to be using the product. Um, but I'm certainly not complaining. 700 people with 300 users on launch day is much better than I think a lot of products do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is. It's a good start. But again, like any launch, it's just the beginning. So we have a lot of plans going forward. Um, do we want to discuss those plans right away, or did you want to sort of dissect the launch a little bit more, do you think?
Yeah, well, yeah. Um, yeah. So I think there's a couple things to say, I guess, about the
Okay.
launch. So here's the raw data. There were 725 visitors. 32 of those actually used the product, and to date, I just looked it up. Um, 297 people have signed up for free accounts, but the caveat there is that we have 0 sales. So
Correct.
what that tells me is that people like the product, they are using it, um, and they are signing up for free accounts. A very good percentage, I think something like 12% of users are signing up for free accounts, which is a very high conversion rate by um, any measurement. But they're not signing up. I mean, but they're not signing up for pro accounts. So what seems to be happening is only half of our sales funnel is working. We are only getting people halfway there. And so one of the major obstacles we're going to have to overcome is how to get people over the hump from signing a free account or signing up for a free account to actually committing to us and signing up as a customer.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I think you're right. All the indicators are there that people like the product, they're using it, and even it's been 10 days, 12 days, something like that since your launch email. But people are still using it on a daily basis. People are coming back, they're creating new rooms, and that's continued, and we're going to discuss how to grow that here in a little bit. But there's no money in the door as of yet. And so, at what point do we pivot, if you will? Is it too early to say what we do with the product, or do we consider other ways to monetize the product? Right now, it's free accounts, and then it's $9.97 or $9.99 for a pro account. Which, for people listening in, a pro account gives some added benefits. You can you can go over what the added benefits are a little bit better, but bigger rooms and some other aspects that make it better and easier to use.
Yeah.
Um, but do we look at other options to monetize, such as advertising, for free accounts, or some other pivot that we can do?
Yeah, and I don't know. Um,
Right.
I think our sample size is big enough now that we know that the current funnel is not going to work, or that the current funnel is working very well for the first half and not at all for the second half. So I think we know that we're going to have to pivot, and that'll have to be a decision in the future. And it could be any number of things. $9 might just be too high for those features. We
Mm-hmm.
know. I mean, we based that off of Twitch TV's model, and they seem to offer less, which is why we came in at that price point. They offer, basically just like different emoticons and stuff. And so we figured that we were offering a really good product, but $9 might just be too high, so we might have to lower the price. Or it might be redesigning which gates go to which features. We know that people really want a friends list now. And it might be a better sales funnel if we charge a much lower price to get that one feature. We don't know. So it's going to have to take some experimenting, and I think part of the experimenting is going to be when do we change it based on our marketing efforts, and what do we do with people who have already signed up and things. But
Yep.
so I think it's obvious now that we do have to pivot, but we will have to decide what exactly we want to do and what makes the most sense for our customers.
Yep. No, I agree. And there's a lot of things that we still are going to do. I mean, we're still very early on in the product, this sort of launch phase, if you will. We're going to do lots of other marketing activities, and that may give us some more answers, some more feedback from our audience as to what they like or maybe what they're willing to pay for, or other things. But, just a couple of ideas, 3 ideas, I guess. One, right now we don't have any ads up for free accounts. We could be putting ads up and maybe even audio ads. I don't know how that might work, but maybe a brief 10-second spot when somebody joins a room. That could either bring in revenue or be annoying enough to make people want to pay for an account. I don't know. Or the other option is maybe we are a little more promotional on the front end for pro accounts.
Yeah.
Maybe the landing page, instead of the only thing people can do on the landing page on vilo.org right now is create a free account. Maybe it's a long form sales letter that tries to pitch people on the pro account right away. And then creating a free account is, you can find it. It's there still. But anyways, a little more heavy on the pitch up front, perhaps.
Yep.
Is one thing to think about. And then the third one that other people have brought up and we've talked about as well is a different market. If for whatever reason we can't make it an awesome winning product in the gaming market, maybe for small business groups and regular business people, there could be some advantages to them having, open rooms where people can join and discuss, business procedures or whatever. Just for small business owners, something like Vilo might make sense for them, and they'd be willing to pay for it. So those are all some pivots or options that we can look at and likely will in the future, I suppose.
For sure, yeah. And we've talked about a couple of those things. And actually, advertising is very interesting because in our very first Reddit post, the one that got us 6,000 ads, people were talking about that. And in that post, we had listed all the things that we would offer with a pro account. And people said, like almost unanimously, that, I don't really mind ads if it helps you guys out and helps keep the product alive.
Yeah.
Which is a very interesting response, but also very cool of people. I mean, and that's one of the things that I really love about the gaming community is that they are really savvy, really smart, and they understand that if we put an ad up on our product, it is directly supporting something that they find really useful, and they don't mind, which is, something that we'll have to look into. And the other option that I think is really interesting is a business application, because now we have a really robust technology stack, and we can shop that around to different businesses or alter it and brand it as a different product, because getting everybody on a conference call across your companies where you can share a screen or something is a major pain point for a lot of businesses, especially businesses that are super big, have lots of employees. So we'll have to think about some of those and really think about what we want to do. But I think right now the most important thing for us to do, the biggest priority, is just exposure, getting traffic. We want what our intuition tells us is that the viral coefficient for Vilo is really high, which means that the only way it makes sense to use is if you're using it with a friend.
Right.
So we think if we get enough exposure, at some point, there's a critical mass. There's a point of no return where if there's enough exposure and enough popularity, it'll snowball and kind of survive on its own from there. But we've got to find it. And so that's where the work begins. That's where the really hard work is getting that level of exposure.
Yep, and I agree, and that is partially the reason that I'm not too concerned about the lack of sales at this point, is because I know that the potential is huge, and building that audience and having some sort of viral aspect to the business really can grow it a lot. And so the next marketing plan, the next action plan that we're going to talk about a little bit, I think really is so critical over the next month or so, where we just focus more on marketing and are concerned with that than pivoting and making money. That's going to come if we can build an audience, because really is a freemium product. If we can build up the free user base, we can then tweak the revenue model a little bit down the road.
Yeah, totally.
So why don't you go ahead and jump into what our plans are going forward here for marketing?
Sure, yeah. So marketing is tricky for us. I personally am going to be putting up a marketing budget. And it's, not huge. It's more than our original budget of $700. But it's not big by any means. It's not going to, get us on the nightly news or anything, but
right.
I'm going to put up a budget of probably $1,000 or so of my own money as part of an investment. Other than that, we are going to be basically growth hacking, which is, a entrepreneurial slang word for elbow grease, which is pretty much getting out there and putting our boots on the ground and doing everything we can in our own manual power in front of our computers to get the word out. And everybody has a different responsibility. So maybe I'll just go through and kind of talk about what everybody's doing.
Okay.
So I'm going to be in charge of getting the product in the hands of influencers. And I think that's going to be really, really difficult, but it also at this point feels mission critical. Or at least if it works, it can give us a major boost. So that might mean finding a popular pro gamer who has a very large Twitter following and getting them to tweet about us. It might mean buying a private spot on a popular streamer. It might mean connecting with other gaming companies or esports companies and partnering in some way to get our logo somewhere. It might even mean sponsoring a team if possible or something. But getting Vilo into hands of influencers is going to be my number one priority. I'm also going to be looking at ads, and our primary advertising venues, I think, are going to be Reddit and Twitch TV, because that's just where the gamers are. Gamers aren't really on Facebook anymore, or at least they don't care about Facebook. They've all got ad block, so we've got to find different ways to reach them. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm going to be kind of managing everybody else. You, Spencer, are going to be dropping the Haas bombs, which
of course
is throwing your weight around, trying to get us on podcasts, and I think you've already secured one for us.
Yep, I do have one.
Yep, and reaching out to the Niche Pursuits readers who have offered to help, and basically using the connections that you've built over the years that you've been an authority in your own niche, and trying to get us on some of the more entrepreneurial podcasts out there. Ahan, who is, our quote-unquote CMO, even though titles don't mean much in a startup because everybody does everything, he's going to be managing everything Reddit. So he's drafting the Reddit posts, managing all the Q&A, and basically overseeing the really big stuff that we are doing on what we view as our main connection with our primary audience, which is Reddit. And then finally, Samir is going to be kind of a grassroots guy. So he's going to be finding as many niche forums, gaming forums, that he can, and sort of get involved there, and then also talk about Vilo. And so hopefully we're going to hit this on a couple different levels. We're going to hit it on sort of the top of the pyramid, which is going to be influencers and popular podcasts, and then the middle pyramid where we're actually talking to our customers, which is Reddit, and then the bottom, which is all these little forums, hopefully creating a sort of general buzz for the product. So at the end of the day, that's going to be a dozen or so big Reddit posts, a couple of ads that we're just going to test, hopefully a few tweets from influencers, 50 or so posts on smaller forums, the Niche Pursuits blog post, of course, and then maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, some help from Niche Pursuits gamers themselves. So it's kind of what the plan is right now.
Yep, and I think it's a good plan. I think that as we go through those activities, I'm hoping that we actually find a few other opportunities that just present themselves.
Right.
Whether that's just few people that are influencers that maybe we weren't intending to reach out to, but maybe they find us and can help us promote in some way or fashion. Or other avenues that maybe we didn't think of, hopefully will present themselves. I think that as we're just, feet on the ground, working as diligently as we can, we're going to better understand where we can reach our market and hopefully find some successful avenues here. So
Sure.
I'm excited to see what the next few weeks bring as we implement some of these marketing strategies. And then, of course, we'll have a lot more to report here on the podcast and on the blog for people as well.
Yeah, totally. It'll be fun.
Yeah, so any final closing thoughts or any other, I don't know, either lessons learned or strategy that you just want to discuss overall?
Well, maybe a couple of things, I guess.
Okay.
I think I want to say something to people who are thinking about doing something like this.
Okay.
Because the reality is this is probably the most nerve-wracking thing I've done, What we do most of the day is build niche sites.
Right.
And I feel like we know how to do it well enough that if we build a certain number of niche sites and we put in a certain effort, we know we're going to at least break even,
Mm-hmm.
This could be a massive success or a total flop, and I just have no way of knowing. So I think it's important for anybody who's thinking about doing something like this to kind of fight through the fear, because it's been a very long process. We still don't know if it's going to work, but better than not doing anything at all. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also wanted to address the first comment on the blog post, because I think that is in line with what I just said.
Okay.
So we posted the blog post, and the very first comment was something that I have heard since the very beginning of Vilo, which is basically like, hey, this is great, but why are you even doing this? There's already products like this out there,
Right.
And I think that's such a weird mindset, and it stops so many people from pursuing a good idea. And the answer is really simple. It's that there's room for competition in every market, And it's kind of the McDonald's Burger King problem. It's not like Burger King just goes home when McDonald's builds a restaurant on some street. They build a restaurant right across the street and compete with them,
Yep.
And so I feel like it's really important to realize that you can compete in any market, especially if you are doing it better or easier or faster or cheaper. And that's kind of what we're doing, And so I feel like it's important for people to, get motivated. And if you feel like you want to compete, go compete, because there's always room.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I mean, the person that left the comment on the blog, I don't know what they've done or what their background is, but my guess is that they probably haven't launched a product before and probably aren't an entrepreneur. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this person is, but you're absolutely right that a lot of people have this mindset that, I thought of this great idea and then I did some research and you know what? Somebody else is already doing it.
Yep.
I've got to move on and do something else. Well, I got to be honest with you. Everybody's probably doing every single idea that you're ever going to think of.
Yeah.
There's 6 billion people in the world. Somebody's thought of your idea already,
Yeah.
and is probably doing it.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. That just means you need to do it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Or a little bit differently. And that's what we're doing. We know that there's already chat software out there for gamers. We're well aware of that. But we saw some ways that we could do it a little bit differently and a little bit easier. And we're hoping that the market likes that and moves over from their current software and moves to what we have. I mean, that's the name of business. That's always the way business is. You mentioned McDonald's and Burger King. I mean, it's not just McDonald's and Burger King. There's 50, different burger joints probably, in my town here, and a lot more in Chicago.
Sure.
There's tons of people selling burgers and fries.
Yeah.
But they do it a little bit differently. They're in a different location. Some have bigger burgers. Some have better tasting burgers. Some deliver them faster, some are cheaper, some are more expensive. There's so many different strategies you can go about doing a business. You just need to be a little bit different to hopefully stand out from the competition.
Yeah, I mean, how different would your life have been if 3 years ago you were like, I have this really great idea for keyword research software, but Market Samurai is already doing it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You just moved on.
Yeah, my life would be drastically different. Drastically different. And I'll be the first to say, Longtail Pro doesn't do a ton different than what Market Samurai does.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But it does it in a little bit easier fashion.
Yeah.
There's some things that makes it a little bit easier for the user, such as inputting multiple seed keywords at once. And I've done a lot to hopefully make it generate keywords faster. The interface is different that I think makes it easier. So there's some things that make it easier and faster and more convenient, but it still generates the same keywords and does competitor analysis very similar to what Market Samurai does.
Yep.
So you're absolutely right that if I had taken that mentality and said, well, somebody else is already doing it and moved on, well, I would never have the opportunity to let's just say have enough money to invest in things like Vilo.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
My life would be very, very different. So that's a good lesson. Anybody listening out there, just because somebody else is doing it, don't throw away the idea. Look for a way to do it a little bit better, a little bit different. There's still a lot of potential in your idea.
Yeah. It's very hard to have a better idea than somebody, but what you can do is out-execute them.
Definitely.
Yeah. Other than that, that's I don't know. Do you have anything else?
No, I think that's a good overview. And in a way, this is like an introductory podcast to what Vilo is. We're just at the very beginning of our story, I hope.
Yeah.
It's very humble beginnings at this point.
Yeah, hopefully.
We've got some users. We're seeing a little bit of traction. We think people like the software, but we're not making a ton of money yet. Hopefully, as our story progresses, in a month or two, we will start making some money. And who knows, a year from now, it could be doing very well. We hope so.
Yeah.
So this is the beginning of our story. We'll come back to tell more of the Vilo story, down the road. If people want to go check out what it's all about, if you are a gamer or want to use free chat software, you can go to vilo.org and go there, see what it's all about. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely.
So, that's about it for the podcast. I wish I had some more fun things to share, such as books I'm reading and documentaries I've watched, but it's just not happening.
Yeah, me too, man. Not on launch week for sure.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I'm still slowly going through my big time college football book. Again, it's good. It's a long book.
Yeah.
And I'm not reading as much as I should. And I've been watching some NBA basketball,
nice.
But no documentaries. So NBA basketball, the finals is kind of like a documentary, I suppose.
A little bit, yeah.
I think
I started reading Dune, which is my move. Like, I've been reading lots of sci-fi, which I just started to in the last year or so. But Dune is like a big granddaddy sci-fi classic. So trying to get even geekier than I already am.
Yeah, man. It's a tall order.
Yeah, it is. It's a big book, and I think I've also been spending some time with the new Cosmos that's out that Neil deGrasse Tyson is doing, which is very good.
Okay. Cool. So, I mean, there you go. So nothing earth-shattering that we can share outside of our business ventures, I guess, at this point.
Yep.
But that's all right. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the podcast today. I don't have any other parting words other than to say, if you've got a great business idea and you've been sitting on it for a while, take some action. See if there's some interest in the market. I don't know if doing a Reddit post works for your particular market, but get out amongst your potential customers, see if there's any interest there, and see if you can do things a little bit better than your competition and perhaps launch your first actual business. So hopefully the story of Vilo gives you some education and some motivation, some insight how we're going about launching and running our current business. But other than that, if you've enjoyed the Niche Pursuits podcast, as always, I would absolutely love it if you left a review or rating. You can go over to nichepursuits.com/iTunes, and that will take you to the iTunes page where you can go ahead and leave a rating. I'd appreciate it very much. Other than that, thank you everyone for listening. Have a great day.